we're talking to Dan Walkow. I've gone way past we would usually reintroduce him. He's from CBank Capital, www.cbankcapital.com. And he is my recommendation to you of a money manager to look after your money if you're a cross-border. Now, you don't have to be cross-border to deal with Dan. If you just live in West Vancouver or Kerrisdale or you're in Toronto, we got Ontario, you look after somebody in Toronto,
sure, yeah.
You can deal with Dan. He can set up a money account for you. He can set up a cash account for you. He can set up an RRSP for you. He can look after your RIF account. He can do it if you're just a Canadian and you never even saw the United States of America. But if you're a guy that does go across the border or is thinking of going across the border, he is somebody that can look after you and have you set up far better than anybody else I know of in Canada. And I've been doing this now for 46 years. Heck, I've been in this house right over there with the same phone numbers for 40 years, 2 months, and 17 days, to put it into context. Actually, it's only 7 days. And I've never run into anybody that can do all the stuff that you can do. And you know I was looking and looking and looking and looking and looking, which is why we got 2 lunches out of this thing. Because people have to be able to get their money looked after. Yeah. So we've talked about that Canadian who goes to the States. Don't want to jump over it or gloss over it too much. Same thing with an American. American is thinking of coming to Canada. And he's got his 401k, and if he moves to Canada, the first thing that the company wants to do is get him to cash in his 401k and roll it over to an IRA, and then they find out that he's living in Canada, and they won't do it for him because nobody will sell him the IRA because he's not a resident of California or a resident of Utah anymore. But if he deals with you, you can do it.
That's right. Yeah.
And you're just down in White Rock and then on the U.S.-Canadian border.
Yeah. So, yeah, we can deal with the U.S. accounts. I mean, when it doesn't even have to be a person returning to Canada. I mean, we have clients now in the United States which have moved from job to job.
Yeah.
And, of course, they have a 401k with one institution. And for Canadians who are listing a 401k in Canada is kind of like a group RSP plan.
Yep.
Okay, is a simple way to explain it, where your company puts in a certain amount and you put in a certain amount, and it's a matching sort of affair, and over a period of time it's vested for you, and you
and now a deduction according to the U.S.-Canada tax treaty for January 1st, 2010, but only if it's a company ordered one. You can't just buy an IRA and make it a deduction on your Canadian return. You can't just buy an RSP and make it a deduction on your U.S. return. It has to be a forced one by the company. Okay, so just to get that clear, something just for the record.
So what that was with the new protocol, right? The new treaty protocol, basically, why that was negotiated is, but you'd work for the Coca-Cola company, and you'd be transferred to Canada. And you're an American, and you're doing a stint here, and
they want to keep you in the American.
And they want to allow you to be able to contribute to your retirement program if you're there on temporary work assignment in each country and so forth. So the door is halfway open, right? Because has to be company sponsored. So as an individual, you can't take advantage of that at this point in time. Maybe they'll open it up in due course. But anyways, we're back to the 401k business. If somebody in the States is dealing with us or wants to deal with us for whatever reason, and just leaves the one company and wants to go to another one and wants to roll to an IRA, and
you can look after that.
We can look after that. It doesn't have to be coming back to Canada. But if and when they do come back to Canada, we're finding this more and more, is that certainly it's difficult to find an American firm who will manage an IRA in Canada anymore.
Well, I don't know anybody, because every day I hear somebody that they're...
So in our case, we manage a variety of different American retirement programs, but certainly the IRA, the traditional IRA, Roth IRAs. The big deal is, this year is the convertibility from a traditional IRA to a Roth, and the complicated issues of that.
Well, we've been able to do that for a long time, spread it over 5 years. The problem is what Canada wants to do if you've come to Canada with that. And we've won that a couple of times where they've said it's the year you did it, and the fact that you're spread it over 5 years doesn't matter.
But it's opened up to anybody. Remember, there was a means test or a total under a certain amount you could do, but now the Roth rollover is open to anybody and everybody, and it'll be the first year next year, right?
Yeah, there used to be a limitation on it. I don't even remember.
There was 100,000 or something. But now you got larger money will be able to access it. It's a big phenomenon in the States. This Roth rollover analysis is kind of the big thing for 2010. In any event, moving to Canada, I mean, we certainly have a good platform. We have good business partners who we work with in the American retirement business. We can basically take on most any type of American retirement plan, and we can again simplify the issue for them, consolidate various IRAs into a single purpose IRA where there's no limitation on the types of investments in the IRA itself. Say where you're typically have a mutual fund, say you're with a mutual fund financial planner in the United States, and that's all you have available to you in your IRA, a limitation of, say, Fidelity products.
Yep.
In our case, we're open architecture, which means that we can custom build a portfolio for you using Vanguard, Fidelity, individual stocks and bonds in the United States. There's no restriction or limited menu of choices in our program. So it's, I guess the point being, it's customizable and can be managed right through the retirement years from where there's no distributions in the IRA, where we get to the age where distributions are required. We handle the distributions, we make sure they get out. And so
what you are doing as well is you have set yourself up to produce the documentation necessary for an American citizen with an RRSP, for instance, to fill in their 8891. You are providing a Canadian with an RRS with a mutual fund or account gets a T3 slip or a T5 with the dividends, the interest, the foreign amount of money. But if they have same thing in an RRSP, nobody gives it to them.
Yeah.
And yet, if they're an American, they have to report that each year on their tax return.
Yeah.
Or face fines. Have you seen, did you get that email from me showing all the fines?
Yes,
the people that have been fined and jailed on the UBS thing?
Yeah.
Union Bank of Switzerland?
Well, that's a big one.
Big. And Canada's sharing in all that information too, just for the record. So if you've got a foreign account in the Grand Caymans, the Bahamas, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, any foreign, Isle of Man, you got a foreign account that you haven't been reporting, I'm going to tell you, come forward voluntarily and do it, because the IRS and the CRA are getting the information. Yeah. It's theirs. Although I got it, did you also see the one I sent out that 27 people actually won in the Swiss court?
But the movement's there, right, David? I mean, it's going to get tighter and tighter.
But the interesting part about that is that they win on not having the internal documentation given to the IRS.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But do they win? No, because they've proven that they have the accounts. And the penalties are up to $500,000 plus 5 years in jail for having the account. They don't have to prove how much money's in it.
Right. Just
in fact, you're better off if you prove that you've only got 10 cents.
Yeah.
Because they're penalizing on the amount of money in it. These guys must have millions and millions of dollars that they fought to keep this stuff secret. Because they're still
there was
liable
a very
for
interesting article. I don't know if
$500,000.
you saw it. It was actually in the Globe and Mail, and this has been going on for some time. And it was about RBC Dominion Securities, and they were having offshore trusts.
Yes.
And I was sort of vaguely familiar with the thing at the time. When I was at the firm, I didn't do it, but basically what the brokers were doing were setting accounts up, taking clients over to Luxembourg.
Yep.
Setting up trusts. And then routing the trades and signing a deal with RBC in Geneva.
Yep.
And the trades would be activated from here, actually in BC, through to the broker in Geneva for the beneficiary trust in Luxembourg. And there was a couple of fellows who I knew at the time. I didn't know they were into this.
Quite so heavy into this.
But I see that it's been 15 years ago, but I see it's kind of downplayed now in the press by RBC. You know, wasn't sanctioned by us, but it wasn't exactly a secret at the time that this was going on either.
I know about
it.
I have one client that was involved in that.
Yeah. Doesn't pay. You know what? And I look at the tax regimes around the world, and you know better than me, but just from an innovation point of view, my sense of it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Canadian tax environment is probably as friendly an environment from a taxation perspective
Yep.
For investors anyways,
Yep.
and wealth creation.
Yep.
It never used to be the case, right? We always, I know we've talked about it before, comparing BC, British Columbia, and California.
BC's cheaper.
By
Far.
By far. Where it used to be 20 years ago, BC was the basket
Yeah.
case or tax banana republic. Now California
You know,
is.
Florida's still cheaper than Toronto,
Yeah.
and Washington's still cheaper than BC. But that's because there's no state tax. But if you look at users' fees and so on,
Yeah.
they can
Yeah,
get
if you add in
up higher.
the
Yeah,
asset taxes, I mean, an
Yeah.
asset tax on your vehicle, for instance.
Yeah.
I mean, it starts to add up.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm
tell